Dennis, Mike Barnes. Dennis will take care of your training.
Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Sensei William Christopher Ford. You may know him as Dennis, Terry Silver's henchman in Karate Kid 3. And William is an actor and filmmaker in projects such as 52 Masters, The Last Dojo.
I consider him one of my senseis. You know, he was very, very much like a father figure to me.
And the upcoming Lucky Night, A Junker's Tale. And of course, William is a martial arts expert who started studying at the age of 7, received his black belt at the age of 13, and teaches martial arts at his Kaizen Dojo in Torrance, California. I have a link to part 1 of this interview in the description if you haven't seen it, and the second part starts now. You have such an interesting background. I want to ask you, how did you get started in studying the martial arts? You were very young.
My first conscious thought about what martial arts was from the Kung Fu series starring David Carradine. And I used to watch that. That was my favorite show. I didn't know any martial arts at the time, but I loved watching this character, Kwai Chang Caine, on his adventures every week. And I knew every week people were going to cause trouble for him and he was going to take care of himself. And that was the first time I'd ever seen martial arts. And I was just amazed. This guy is like a superhero. And I look forward to seeing that every week. Some years later, locally here in California, I don't know if you remember this, there was a place called Japanese Deer Park. It was in Buena Park, California. It was based on, I guess, certain tropes that were actually Japanese, Japanese dance, koi ponds, pearl diving, Japanese foods, things like that. There was Japanese architecture. And one of the live shows they had was a live action karate or karate show that starred none other than Shihan Fumio Demura and his team of martial arts students. And they put this show on several times a day. My mom and dad took me to see the show, and it was very dynamic, very theatrical, very entertaining and exciting. And that was the first time I'd actually seen martial arts live, and specifically karate live. So that was the second seed. So needless to say, I had a pretty good start in terms of my inspiration. A few years later, I was at school. I think I was in the 3rd grade or so. And I had a buddy named Joe who had just signed up at the local karate dojo. And he said, "Hey, man, I'm taking karate. I mean, you got to take it too." And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And he was already showing me his moves. I think he'd only been in class for a few weeks, but he knew more than me. So, on the playground, he was showing me his moves. And he tells my mom, "Mrs. Ford, we got to take him down to the dojo because we've already signed him up." And my mom's like, "What do you mean we've already signed him up?" So I ended up meeting the instructor whose name was Glenn Rabago. And Sensei Glenn was just, he was a very good martial artist, but he was like a brother from Hawaii. And I had in my mind the idea of Kwai Chang Caine. And I thought when you talk to the master, you have to speak in broken English. So he was like, "Okay, so you like start?" And I was like, "Yes, master, but first I must use your bathroom." And he looked at me really strange, and my mom kind of looked at me like, "What is wrong with my son?" And I ended up going, put my uniform on and everything, and then that was kind of it. And unfortunately, Sensei Glenn had a lot of demons, some baggage. He wasn't the most responsible instructor. Back in the day, things were different, and while I believe that yes, hard work, yes, discipline is important, there is a line that you can cross that can become just like, that's just not a good way to train kids. When we're getting beat up all the time by him, having to spar him and him kicking me, and enough to actually bring tears to my eyes and kind of make me fly across the room. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This was not making me feel confident. It was not building me up. Fortunately, his brother Richard Rabago took over the dojo, and from then on I began to thrive. And Sensei Richard Neither brother is living anymore, but Sensei Richard was a much better sensei. He was responsible. He was a family man. He knew how to work with kids. He knew how to push us. He knew how to be strict with us without having it be personal attacks. And under him, I really thrived and really learned to grow to love the martial arts. There was another instructor there at the time named David Liu. Also, he has passed on, and he was great because he taught me fundamentals of like boxing and kickboxing. So I got a chance to start. That was kind of like the beginning of sort of my mixed martial arts cross training, open-mindedness towards martial arts, because showing me how to throw a hook punch. And when I first learned that, I was like, oh, that's got to be the stupidest punch I've ever learned, because I was like, and he's like, no, you got to turn your shoulders and your hips into it. And then one day I just went pow, and I popped the bag, and I was like, wow, that really works. And it was largely because of Sensei Dave Liu and Sensei Richard Rubago that I really began to love the martial arts, and I loved going to the dojo and training. And there were two different individuals that taught me different things, but I really respected them both and learned how to appreciate what each of them was teaching me. And then I discovered Bruce Lee like the rest of the world, and I kind of lost my mind. And the way that happened was there was a screening of a movie called The Game of Death. And they basically had shot some footage before Bruce died, and it was him fighting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Dan Inosanto, and he was fighting the Hapkido master. And this footage had been not seen for 5-6 years, something like that. Columbia Pictures decided they're going to make a movie based on this, and they put this movie together. It wasn't a very good movie, but there was a lot of excitement, and they did this premiere in Hollywood that Linda Lee, Bruce's widow, was there. Brandon Lee was there. Shannon Lee was there. His kids. Dan Inosanto was there. And they invited all these martial arts schools to come to the screening. You could get in for free as long as you wore your uniform. So even my mom didn't take karate. My mom put on her uniform, my instructor let her borrow a uniform. And we all went down there. We carpooled down there. And I went into the movie theater, and I just thought, well, this is fun because, it's a field trip and we get to see a movie, a karate movie. This is really cool. And the lights went down. The crowd went nuts. Anytime the real Bruce Lee showed up on screen, the crowd just went crazy. And I didn't realize that this was a double. At the time, I was a kid. You look back at it now, and it's really bad where they have this, like, they did this, like, took like an X-Acto knife and did a cutout from one of his other movies and pasted the head on the body. And back then I couldn't tell, but right now you're just going, oh, this is awful. Maybe they ought to redo this with CGI. The last part of the movie is when he enters the tower, and that's where they cut to, about 13 minutes of the real Bruce Lee. And the crowd is taking flash pictures of the screen and just going nuts. And it was just electric.
Oh, wow.
And I went home transformed. I knew that I wanted to be like this guy. And that started my whole collection of magazines and posters. And my mom even bought me the Bruce Lee nunchaku from the Philadelphia. It was the Asian World of Martial Arts in Philadelphia, which is still in existence. They would advertise in the magazines, and you get the yellow and black nunchaku that Bruce Lee had. So I might beg my mom, and she ordered it. Back then, they would just ship it to California. I don't think they do that anymore. And the package finally came, and I opened it up, and it was like, oh, and I had these heavy wooden nunchaku, and I still have them to this day. And I took them out, and bam, I hit myself on the head, and I broke lamps, and I hit myself in the shin, and I absolutely loved it. So that was another major event that really kind of set me on fire. And then there was meeting, Master Tadashi Yamashita, who was the sensei of my sensei. He was Sensei Rubago sensei. Really well known for being sort of a weapons master and, a renowned Shorin Ryu karate master all over the world. Started opposite Chuck Norris in the Octagon. He played Sakura, his half-brother. And just a very, very dynamic individual. Intense, difficult master to serve. And I haven't seen or spoken to him in 10 years, but I definitely benefited from my training with him and got a lot out of it. So I give respect, to all my teachers. I've studied with many more. I've studied other styles as well, but that's kind of the foundation of what eventually led into, Karate Kid 3 and, doing other things, opening my own dojo and things like that.
It sounds like you have experience with so many senseis that have associations or experience in show business and in movies and film. Your appreciation and love for Bruce Lee and what he did. Is that what started your interest in acting?
Partially, it was Bruce Lee, and seeing, The Game of Death was definitely one of those turning point movies that I had seen. Enter the Dragon was the one I think that really pushed me over the edge, because that's the classic Bruce Lee movie. It was in 1977 where I got a chance to see Star Wars in the movie theater. Not on DVD, not on VHS, but Star Wars, not episode 4. It was just called Star Wars. And I wanted to be Han Solo. And Harrison Ford was very instrumental in me wanting to become an actor too, because he went on to do Indiana Jones and Blade Runner. And Harrison Ford was my man at that time. And, I still have a high regard for him. But yeah, I would say it was those two individuals, Bruce Lee and Harrison Ford, that were the most influential in what I wanted to do.
Wow, that's so interesting. Now, in addition to those, obviously during the 80s, we had one or two movies come out you might have heard of called The Karate Kid and The Karate Kid Part 2.
Yes.
Now, did you remember seeing those and at the time? And I'm just curious as to your thoughts at the time when those came out.
The first time I'd heard about the Karate Kid was through Daryl Vidal, who played the fighter Vidal in Karate Kid 1. He and I were friends. We competed on the same local tournament circuit. I would see him all the time. Daryl was great back then. He was a great martial artist. He was able to hold his leg out and do multiple kicks. And he was like a Filipino Bruce Lee. And I would run into him all the time, and we were always very friendly. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be in a movie." And I was like, "Yeah?" And he said, "Yeah, it's called The Karate Kid." It's like, Karate Kid. And at that time, there was a DC Comics character called The Karate Kid. And I guess Columbia Pictures actually got permission to use that in their title. But it was like, well, that's kind of a dumb name for a movie, which I think a lot of people thought, including like Ralph Macchio and all the people involved in the movie, with probably the exception of director John Avildsen and maybe the writer, thought it was a pretty dumb name. But I went to see the movie. Now, I didn't want to go see this movie at first when it first came out, because I was just kind of rolling my eyes. But actually, one of the young students at Sensei Robago's dojo, his family had gone, and they said, "Oh, you really ought to see this movie. It's so good, and we'll take you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went there with them, and I didn't want to like the movie, but I got sucked into it. And it was because of the characters and the story and the empathy that was created. And I got sucked in just like everybody else, and was inspired, and walked out of that movie theater thinking that was a really, really good movie. Then the sequel came out, and of course I needed to go see that, because it takes place in Okinawa, which was actually filmed in Hawaii. And it looked like it was going to be pretty cool, different. And sure enough, it was. And so, I was already very familiar with the Karate Kid universe prior to Karate Kid 3. You got a sneak preview of a short film I did called Lucky Night, A Junker's Tale, in which I get to fight a gentleman named Jeff Jeds. And so you've gotten to see me do a lot more fighting and acting and being not so nice a guy without giving away too much of that. You could see me as a bad guy, right?
Oh, yeah. In this movie, William plays a very intimidating person who's very skilled in the martial arts. And it's a really great showcase. And I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about how this came about?
I was contacted by my buddy Jeff Jeds, who is a longtime martial artist. He was a student of the late Liu Fong, who palled around with Bruce Lee, was very close to Bruce Lee. Jeff contacts me, says they're looking for somebody to. They're working on a movie called Junkers, and he needs somebody to fight in an alley. He asked me if there's somebody that I know. I sent him some names, and I said, yeah, these guys are really good, and they could definitely do the job. I guess the director, Nick Nielsen, was. He said, well, they were okay, but not quite what they were looking for. They wanted to know maybe if I wanted to do something. And I said, sure, of course. Let me know what I can do. I hench very well. I'm a good henchman. And Jeff Jeds, being the gentleman that he is, very respectful man, great martial artist, says, I can't have William be just a thug. Given his experience, given the amount of time he's put in the art, we have to have a fight. And I want you guys to give him something more to do. And they did. And it turned out to be pretty significant. I mean, my character is the main antagonist in this showcase. And we get to have a long fight. And I do get to show some of the things that I've been talking about, some of my martial arts skills that I've learned over the years, and a darker side to me that is very far from my real personality, but I'm able to draw upon it organically. Everybody's got that dark side. So that's what happened. And I was very fortunate that Jeff, being as generous and not threatened by me at all, he was very happy with my performance. And they were talking about bringing my character back in the feature version. So we shall see. But that's how that came about. And I was just very fortunate to be asked to be part of that.
For everyone who hasn't seen it yet, it is a lot of fun. I am so happy I got a sneak preview of that. And where can people look to see it? Is there a release date yet of any kind if people want to check this out?
I think it's going to be available actually to be watched online in just a few months. So I would look sometime in the summertime, and we'll be announcing it. Kanjo Smalls is the name of my character. You're killing me, Smalls.
It's a very memorable character. It's a memorable performance. If he comes back, I will be for round 2. I will be very happy to see that. Obviously through your life, through your acting work, there is this consistent theme of martial arts and your love for the martial arts. And I was wondering if you could talk about how it's important to you, but also how it could be important to other people. And who would you encourage to look into martial arts for studying? Who do you think would benefit from martial arts?
Most of my students, I've had the good fortune and the honor and pleasure of working with a lot of kids, being able to help them build confidence where maybe they didn't feel confident, helping them to believe in themselves, helping them to become physically, mentally, emotionally, and maybe even spiritually strong through martial arts training and my showing up and being an example, sort of a role model. And I've seen the benefit of it. But you don't have to be a kid, it's never too late. I've trained people as in their 70s even. And men, women, there's just a lot of benefit to studying a martial art. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be karate. It can be jiu-jitsu, Thai kickboxing, kung fu, wrestling, whatever it is that you find appealing about it, you can really, it can be a very transforming vehicle for somebody.
Obviously, the Karate Kid movies and Cobra Kai deal with bullying, and bullying has always been a constant problem for adults, but also especially for kids.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how martial arts can help someone deal with being bullied.
The idea that, well, if you are bullied, somebody will do this to you, and then you can respond with this technique. Okay, that there is some truth to that component, right? Somebody tries to hit you, you don't get hit, and you're able to retaliate back and make the bully stop. That is true. But more importantly, being able to have the strength and confidence to, one, if you are confronted with bullies, which oftentimes they will taunt you, try to attack your self-esteem, belittle you. If you're a strong enough person to where that doesn't affect you, you've just taken away the bully's power. Martial arts is not a guarantee, but it can certainly help with that, being able to shrug things off and also come back with a strong verbal response. And oftentimes people who study martial arts they carry themselves a different way. You know, the head is up, shoulders are back, you're more aware, hopefully. And bullies tend to like to pick on people whom they think are weaker than they are. When you show up and you are confident, you look people in the eye, you keep cool, things don't faze you, and you have the ability to call out a bully, they tend to go back into the shadows. They leave you alone, find somebody else to pick on. Because bullies are people who are damaged. They are people who have been abused, people who have been bullied themselves, people who are looking to make themselves feel better about themselves. I feel empathetic, you know. So it's not as simple as, well, they're bad guys. Well, they're doing bad things. They shouldn't be doing that. But it's a cycle that keeps being, you know, perpetuated and carried on. But martial arts is good for all those things, but more importantly, about building the foundational strength, having that pillar of confidence, self-awareness, being able to stand in your own power. And that's where the real anti-bullying comes in. Because as you know, it's not just about somebody knocking books out of your hand. It's cyberbullying. It's, you know, this whole social media thing. You can be bullied on that, you know, very easily. And, you know, there's just a ton of other things. There's the taunting, the shaming, all that other stuff. And you have to be able to call it out. And once you shine light on that, oftentimes it will go away. That being said, it's good to have the physical tools also, because after all that, sometimes there's nothing like a good old-fashioned punch in the nose to make a bully leave you alone. So hopefully that's the last resort.
Now you have the Kaizen Dojo, which now how long has that been open?
We've been open for 10 years now.
So for 10 years, and if someone is in the Torrance, California area, you're accepting students?
I'm a bit of a waiting list right now. After the pandemic, we were kind of inundated with people wanting to get back out and do things. But yes, I am still taking students, but some of the classes you have to wait a little bit. But I'm also happy to recommend, I have a lot of friends who teach martial arts, who have their own schools in the area, and I'm always happy to refer them. You know, there's the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which I study at, Machida Karate, a bunch of other people who are great teachers. So I'm not the only game in town. But if they want to study with me, yes, I'm definitely easy to find.
Well, that's great. And for everyone kind of around the planet even who's interested in studying the martial arts, do you have any advice on selecting a good dojo? Like, how do you know a place might be a good place to study, or that might have, you know, a good sensei?
My research always starts with the internet now. I always go to Yelp and look at the reviews. It's not always a 100% accurate indicator, but it can at least kind of give you an idea. I look at their website. People talk. I would very recommend visiting the dojo, seeing if the place resonates with you. See how the instructors are. See if you feel a connection. Look at how they teach. Look at what they're teaching. Look at whether or not it's within your budget. And, you know, do you think what they're teaching is, you know, does it correspond with what they are charging? You can't necessarily put a dollar value on some of the skills that are being taught because I believe they are invaluable. But there are what you call McDojos, which all they're interested in is taking your money, you know, and pay $5,000 and bang, 10 years old and you're a black belt. Like, what does that even mean, man? That's certainly not fair to the kid, you know, because he's running around thinking that he knows something, and you know, you might be in for a rude awakening. I believe in putting not the money first and not the art first. I believe in putting the client, the student, the people first as an instructor. And if you're looking for an instructor, maybe that would resonate with you. It's like, is this person going to put me first? Or is he just after my money? Or, you know, and then there are instructors who they mean well, but they're on the other opposite end of that, where everything is about the art, you know, and everything is about the grandmasters and the art and everything. And, you know, you don't study anyplace else, and you have to, and it becomes very almost like cult-like, you know, and I don't think that's healthy either. But it's got to be a personal decision. You know, you meet somebody and you go, I really like this person. I want to study with him or her. I like this style, you know. Yeah, you know, rather than just sort of sign on the dotted line without checking it out, everybody should do the research.
And I want to also ask you about a couple projects, because obviously you're an actor, but you're also a filmmaker. You have this really exciting series on your YouTube channel called 52 Masters. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
That's definitely a passion project of mine. So I was 51 years old and I wanted to do something to celebrate turning 52. And I'm kind of a big guy, you know, I like catchy titles and things that, especially if they correspond with numbers sometimes. And 52 is like, well, there's 52 cards in a deck, there's 52 weeks in a year, 52. So I came up with the number 52. 52 what? 52 experts, 52 black belts. And so, oh, 52 masters, that's really catchy. So the idea was go train with one martial arts master, and they don't have to be a master per se, but just, you know, an expert or somebody who's just really good at what they do. And then train with them and then interview them. Talk about life, whatever they want to talk about. And we'll do 52 15-minute episodes, and we'll do one episode per year, or per week, per year. That would take forever, right? And so that was the intention, and just logistically, it was really tough to be able to do one every week. You know, the camera guys that I get are just really amazing, but the friends of mine, they always are kind of willing to do me a friends and family favor, and sometimes they got busy with other projects, and sometimes it was difficult coordinating with, you know, the people that I wanted to train with. So it's taken longer than I thought, and we've gotten up to maybe 36 episodes. So I have a few more, and I have to finish. And I'm not changing it to 56 masters, or, you know, because everybody says, well, just change it. Because I'm 55 years old now, and I don't want to change the title. It's just like, well, no one's really counting. And, you know, at the end of the day, there will be 52. So maybe it takes me, I hope it doesn't take me 52 years, but I just, I got to finish. I got some people on the list I definitely want to interview. I got a couple in the can, and a couple of my favorite ones were Ron Thomas and Daryl Vidal, Karate Kid alumni, and those episodes became kind of fan favorites as well. And it got a chance for all of us to show and talk about what we know. And Ron Thomas being, you know, a legitimate jiu-jitsu guy, and Daryl Vidal, and, you know, they get to throw me around and, you know, hit me in the neck and all this good stuff. And then, you know, we get to talk about their life and we get to see their humanity. And that's what I love about the show. I love training with people, but I love even more so being able to talk to people and getting them to show me something human about them, show me their heart. We always have a good time. We always have a good laugh. So we're not done yet. I have to finish.
Well, Everyone who is interested in seeing this, I will put a link down to your YouTube channel. So you have all of these videos and more, including a documentary called The Last Dojo, which is excellent.
Thank you.
Everyone should check that out. You've done a lot of work with charities, with the St. Jude Children's Hospital. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit about your association with that charity and the project that you're doing right now.
You know, part of the philosophy of Kaizen is continual improvement. It's not just continual improvement as a martial artist, it's continual improvement as a person. And so in 2014, I started doing fundraisers for St. Jude Children's Hospital. I like that organization so much because they take in kids who have cancer and they treat them, and it doesn't cost the family anything. They pay for the travel, the lodging, the food, and the treatment. And I just love that. So I've been doing some sort of fundraiser for St. Jude almost every year. And sometimes I try to come up with unique ideas. So the idea we had come up with was, let's me, Daryl Vidal from Karate Kid 1, and Ron Thomas, who played Bobby Brown in Karate Kid 1, all of us are legitimate black belts. So we took a picture here at the dojo, and it was taken by a gentleman named AJ Javari, amazing photographer. And we took that picture and we sent it over to Mark Kerr, who is, his handle is Let's Be One. Just an amazing, amazing artwork. You've seen it. It's just...
He's incredible.
And I said, you know what? Let's call this the Legitsu Trinity. Legitsu, like the art of legitimacy, right? And
yes.
Just sort of like, okay, it's paying homage to commitment, to hard work, to, you know, just being legit. It's not bragging. It's not saying that we're better than anybody. It's just saying, hey, this is what commitment is about. And we're also committed, all of us are committed to giving back and paying forward. So Mark Kerr created this amazing print, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it was a collaborative effort with all of us. And we are selling that to basically raise funds for the hospital. All proceeds, we're not making any money from it. All proceeds go to the hospital. And people can contact me and find out how they can get one. All of us have signed it, and it's a pretty cool thing to have. And it's a limited edition, so very, very few people in the world will actually have one of these. It's 8x10. It's very nice. It's printed on photographic paper. You know, it'll look wonderful being framed, and you guys will be contributing to a very, very good cause.
Well, that's excellent. And all of that information will be down in the description. So everyone, please, this sounds like an amazing opportunity, kind of a limited opportunity to help support the St. Jude Children's Hospital.
There have been some people who've already purchased one and contributed. And I just, you know, you guys know who you are, and I wanted to thank you guys for that. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you guys always have my back. That's very much appreciated.
Well, William, we've had such a great conversation talking about so many different things, and you have so many projects, so many things coming up. What is the best way for people to follow you?
Well, my preferred social media is Instagram, either real William Christopher Ford or just William Christopher Ford. I use two different accounts, but both of them are me. And that's the best way to follow me. Email is kaizendojofilms@gmail.com. And you can put it in the description.
And Sensei William Christopher Ford, it is an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much. I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you. I'd love to have you back. Thank you for joining us today. Go ahead and hit subscribe and like, and I look forward to seeing you next time.